What is going on, guys? It is week 16 of fantasy hockey, and today we're going to be talking about the teams with the best and worst schedules, some new power play updates, the streamers to help you maximize your games, and some new must-add players. Starting off, let's talk about the most off nights for this week. And just taking a look at the schedule here, we have a little bit of a different type of schedule in terms of off nights. And you can see that I've labeled Monday and Tuesday as orange because there's a chance that it's an off night for you or that it's not an off night for you. I typically use 8 games as the threshold, but it really depends on your roster construction, how many players you have on specific teams. So make sure you check if you have an open roster spot on these nights. With that being said, we do have some nights that are definitely off nights and definitely heavy nights. Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday definitely being off nights, and then Thursday and Saturday being heavy nights. In terms of the teams with the most off nights this week, the Jets, they could have 4 off nights for you or 3 off nights. So definitely good for maximizing your games. And then with the Panthers, they either have 2 off nights or 3 off nights. Those 2 teams are going to be the best for this week in terms of maximizing your games. But you also have some other teams that have a chance to have 3 off nights for you. These teams being the Avalanche, the Utah Hockey Club, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. There is a chance that players on these teams could have 3 off nights. So that is very solid. Like I said, it really depends on if you have open roster spots on Monday and Tuesday. And then you also have the Senators as well, which could have 2 off nights. So like I said, all these teams have 4 games and a decent amount of off nights. So a ton of streaming options for this week. Lastly, we do have some teams that have 3 games and 2 off nights. Again, it really depends on if you have those open roster spots on Monday and Tuesday, but that will be solid. And then we have a couple of teams with 4 games and 1 off night as well. The Blackhawks, the Stars, the Rangers, and the Flyers have 3 games and 2 off nights. And the Bruins, the Sabres, the Hurricanes, the Blue Jackets, the Minnesota Wild, and the San Jose Sharks have 4 games and 1 off night. Moving on to the least amount of games for this week. Thankfully, there's only one team that plays twice this week, and that team is the New Jersey Devils. They have 2 games and 1 off night, so if you have a bunch of players on the Devils, it's not going to be ideal for this week, and you probably don't want to go ahead and pick up a Devils player for this week to stream because it's not going to maximize your games. Moving on, let's talk about the teams with the easiest and hardest schedule. Starting with skaters, we're going to be looking at teams with an above 2.95 opponent goals against average, so the teams that are playing generally let in a lot of goals. And these teams are the Los Angeles Kings, the Nashville Predators, the New York Islanders, the Anaheim Ducks, the Devils, and the Red Wings. There's a chance that the players on these teams do better than they normally do, so something to consider. And then on the flip side, the hardest schedule for skaters are going to come from these teams. This is a below 2.65 opponent goals against average, starting with Utah. Absolutely brutal, 2.39 opponent goals against average. Then you also have the Blues, the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks, the Canadiens, the Flames, and the Stars. Now let's talk about goalies for a minute here. The easiest and hardest schedule for goalies. Starting with easiest, let's look at the teams with the below 2.85 opponent goals per game. These teams are playing teams that generally don't score a lot of goals, so it will benefit the goalies. First, we have the Nashville Predators with the best schedule for goalies this week. Saros could have a great week. Then we have the Sharks, the Penguins, the Wild, the Flyers, the Devils, and the Panthers. On the flip side, the hardest schedule for goalies are going to be from these teams. These are teams that are above 3.25 opponent goals per game. So they are playing teams that generally score a lot of goals. We have the St. Louis Blues, the Vancouver Canucks, the Blackhawks, the Leafs, and the Islanders. All right, now let's talk about some streamers that you might want to pick up for the entire week to maximize your games. And like I said, the Jets and the Panthers have the best schedule for this week. The Jets could have 4 off nights, but they're guaranteed 3 off nights with their schedule. The Panthers could have 2 off nights, but most likely 3 off nights. And we also have a bunch of other teams that could have 3 off nights that I'll talk about in a little bit here, but let's start with the Jets and the Panthers. Unfortunately, there's not the best options on these teams. They are top-heavy teams. However, really depends on your league size in terms of which players are going to be available. With the Jets, Velarde is obviously the best option in terms of roster percentage. Ehlers could also be available in a more shallow league. And then you have some other players like Neil Pionk, guys like Lowry, Perfetti, Niederreiter, some of these deeper league options that could be available. On the topic of streamers, I want to give a shout out to GiddyUpSports.com. I've talked about them in some of my videos, but basically this is a free tool that you can use to automate your waiver wire and gain a massive edge against your competition. No longer do you have to set an alarm to ensure you get a player for the entire week. No, All you have to do is head over to GiddyUpSports.com, sync your league, and schedule an ad for Monday at 3 in the morning, and you can ensure that you get that player for the week, like a streamer who has a bunch of off nights. There's more info in the comments below. This is a cheat code, especially when it comes to the fantasy playoffs. It's coming up in a couple of months. So yeah, head over to GiddyUpSports.com, stop losing sleep, and start winning leagues. Now with the Florida Panthers, Verhaeghe would probably be the best option in terms of roster percentage. He's had a down season. He's been dropped. He could be available in a more shallow league. A player like Sam Bennett, I know he's been cold, but he has those peripherals. You have players like Anton Lundell, who's getting a decent amount of ice time playing on a line with Verhaeghe. You also have some defensemen like Forsling, Mikola, who puts up very good peripherals. And then some of those other top 6, top 9 guys, Rodriguez, Lisserainen, and even Nate Schmidt, who is currently quarterbacking the first power play unit with Ekblad being out day to day. Now let's talk about a few more streaming options that you could pick up for the entire week. These options potentially having 4 games and 3 off nights, depending on your roster and if you have open roster spots on Monday or Tuesday. We have the Avalanche, the Utah Hockey Club, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. A ton of options here. It's going to depend on your league settings, but I included them on this page. You can take a look and decide which options are best for you. Moving on, let's talk about some streaming strategies. There's so many different possibilities and opportunities to stream because of the way the schedule is this week, so I couldn't do them all, but I just wanted to do one clear-cut one, and that is picking up players on Friday and dropping them Monday. These are going to be weekend streamers. All of these teams play on Friday and Sunday, both of those nights being off nights. And as you can see, these are going to be players from the Vegas Golden Knights, the Jets, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Chicago Blackhawks. You can pick up these players for the weekend and in turn maximize your games, maximizing your fantasy points. Okay, now let's talk about some new power play updates, starting with the Boston Bruins. McAvoy is currently out day to day, which means Mason Lohrei is on the first power play unit. As I'm recording this Saturday morning, I don't know if McAvoy is back today, but for now, Lohrei could be an option in a deeper league. With the Carolina Hurricanes, Shane Gostisbehere is back. He's on power play 1, obviously. With the Colorado Avalanche, Lehkonen and Drouin are still power play 1, but Valeri Nichushkin is returning very soon. I expect Nichushkin to eventually get back on power play 1. I believe Lehkonen would be the guy getting sent down to power play 2, so something to consider. We also have Fantilli still being power play 1 with Sean Monahan out. I originally said 7 to 10 days in the last video. I apologize. It looks like it's going to be at least 2 weeks. So obviously Fantilli is still a fantastic ad, being line 1 with Voronkov and Marchenko and being power play 1 as well. With the Dallas Stars, we have Matt Duchene on power play 1 because Rupe Hintz is out day to day. For you OG fantasy hockey players, you guys know day-to-day Rupe is a thing. We will see how this injury progresses. But yeah, obviously a huge bump for Duchene in the short term. We will see what happens. With the Florida Panthers, Aaron Ekblad is still out. It's deemed day-to-day, but he's missed a couple of games, so we'll see what happens there. But in his absence, we have Nate Schmidt quarterbacking the top power play unit. Good news for Nate Schmidt. Could be an option in a very deep league. With the Minnesota Wild, Brock Faber is healthy. Don't know if he's going to be power play 1 to start off. I'm assuming he's going to get back on there. But obviously this means Declan Chisholm is probably no longer an option. I will keep you guys updated. With the Islanders, Brock Nelson is still power play 1, and this is very good for his value. He's only 50% rostered on Yahoo, getting elite deployment now. And yeah, I thought I would just include an update that he is still power play 1 as I'm recording this. With the New York Rangers, Chris Kreider is back. He was injured, he's back, and they are still running this regular power play 1 of Zibanejad, Panarin, Kreider, Trocheck, and Adam Fox. With the Philadelphia Flyers, we have Konechny, Tippett, Michkov, Morgan Frost, and Jamie Drysdale in power play 1. In the last couple of games, they are getting more power play time than normal. Sometimes they like to split the usage for both units, but they are giving more time to this first unit. So something to keep an eye out for. Wouldn't get too excited because Tortorella loves to switch up the units. Now with the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is a little bit hard to project because Chris Letang is out with an illness. So when he's back, we could see the power play switch up once again. But what's really interesting about this with Letang being out is they have Matt Grzelcyk, Raquel, Bunting, Crosby, and Russ power play 1. This means they have Malkin and Erik Karlsson power play 2. It's kind of crazy to see Erik Karlsson not on power play 1, even with Letang out. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but Grzelcyk could be a good defenseman ad in a deeper league. Then with the San Jose Sharks, I gave you the update last week that William Eklund was power play 1 with Alex Wennberg out, but Wennberg is returned and Eklund is still power play 1. Very good news for William Eklund, and of course, he is still a must-add forward. Now with the St. Louis Blues, they are still splitting their power plays. They have Kyrou and Falk on power play 2. They have Fowler, Thomas, and Buchnevich power play 1. We will see what happens, but obviously this is not the best news for those top players. Moving on to the second page of power play updates, we have a couple of more updates here. The Tampa Bay Lightning are splitting their power play units, which is very unusual for them. They have Kucherov on both units, but they have Darren Radish and Chaffee on power play 1, and then they have Hagel and Hedman on power play 2. I don't expect this to last, but yes, this is what they're doing right now. With the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tavares is out week to week, and that means Matthew Knies is power play 1. Very good news for his value in fantasy. With the Utah Hockey Club, Josh Doan is still power play 1 with Dylan Gunther out week to week. And we also have a new injury. Mikhail Sergachev is only out day to day, but in his absence, Michael Kesselring is now power play 1. Two more updates here with the Vancouver Canucks. Last game, they had Jake DeBrusk on power play 1 and Brock Besser on power play 2. Don't know if that's going to last. I wouldn't expect it, but that's what we saw last game. Then finally, with the Vegas Golden Knights, we have an interesting update here. Victor Olofsson has been bumped down to power play 2, and then Pavel Dorofeev is now power play 1. Obviously, Dorofeev had that hat trick a couple of nights ago, but yeah, I could see him staying on power play 1 for the entire year. So he is definitely a must-add forward. Moving on, let's talk about some forward adds. I've combined players that I just think have too low of a roster percentage, and also some new must-add forwards in this list. So yeah, just to talk about some of these players, Valeri Nichushkin, his roster percentage is still very low to me. I understand he's very injury prone. I get it, but his return is very close, and he's likely going to slot in the top 6 and as that net front player on power play 1. So definitely worth an add because the upside is there. We have Matthew Barzal getting elite ice time. The production is decent as well. I just think his roster percentage is too low. Matt Zuccarello, he is still producing despite Kaprizov being out. I just think his roster percentage is too low. I'm basing this roster percentage on Yahoo, by the way. Brian Rust, his roster percentage on Yahoo is like 49%. I don't understand this at all, guys. He's getting elite deployment, elite protection, solid peripherals. It makes no sense, guys. Add him if he is available. Obviously, it depends on your league size. Like if you're in a 6-team league, you don't have to pick up Brian Rust, but in any leagues with 10 teams or more, he should be rostered. Next, we have Brock Nelson. He is still power play 1, getting elite ice time. I think he might have a good second half if he continues to get this deployment. We have Matt Duchene. This could very well be just a short-term add. Rupe Hintz is out day-to-day. Maybe he's back next game. But in his absence, we have Duchene on power play 1 and getting like 20 minutes a night. So this is a nice short-term bump for Matt Duchene. Next, we have William Eklund. Eklund's having a very sneaky, underrated season this year. The production has been great, and he hasn't been power play 1 for the majority of the season. So now that he's power play 1, this is very good news for him, and he is a must-add player. Next, we have Troy Terry. He is back after missing a couple of games. And with Terry, he just has really good deployment. The production's been decent, and he likes to shoot the puck as well. He's been shooting it more as of late. So definitely a fan considering his low roster percentage. Next, we have Pavel Dorofeev. I talked about him earlier. He is now power play 1. He just had a hat trick. If he gets bumped off power play 1, then he's not going to have a lot of value, in my opinion. But as long as he's power play 1, you're going to see a big bump in his fantasy value. So he is definitely worth a look with this deployment. Next, we have Matthew Knies. He's power play 1 with Tavares out. Definitely worth a look. And we have Logan Cooley. And Cooley was moved up to line 1 with Clayton Keller, which is huge. And with some of the injuries that they've been dealing with, Cooley's getting a ton of ice time. Like the last couple of games, we've seen a couple of 20-minute nights for him. He's a young player who's breaking out. His production's been great this year. And I understand he's only a pure C on Yahoo, but I still think his roster percentage is too low for what he's offering right now, being a line 1 power play 1 player. Next, we have Adam Fantilli. He is line 1 power play 1 with Sean Monahan out with a wrist sprain. Monahan is not expected to be out longer than 3 weeks. I think he's only going to be out for like 2 weeks. So this is not a long-term hold. I think Fantilli's value will tank once Monahan returns, but in the meantime, he is still a must-add player. Next, we have Braden Shen. He's getting solid ice time. He's putting up a lot of hits if your league values those. And this 1A, 1B power play situation is benefiting some of those middle 6 players on the Blues. So yeah, I think his roster percentage is pretty low for what he's doing right now. Next, we have two Buffalo Sabres players. Jason Zucker, still line 1, power play 1. I still think he's a sell high player. I talked about him in my most recent buy low sell high video. However, if he's still sitting on your waiver wire, he's certainly worth a look. Next, we have Jack Quinn. Quinn has a very low roster percentage. I get it. Doesn't have the best ice time, doesn't put up the best peripherals, but he's still a young player who is getting significant power play time. So as long as he's power play 1, I will continue to include him on this list. Moving on to the second page of Forward Adds here, Matt Coronado. His ice time has been really good lately. He's been shooting a ton, which is always a good sign. The Flames split their power play units 1A, 1B, but that benefits a player like Coronado. So yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing. The peripherals are good, certainly under rostered. We also have Josh Stone, who is line 2, power play 1. He's not going to put up a lot of peripherals. His even strength ice time isn't going to be the best, but this deployment is pretty solid, and he has a pretty low roster percentage. Next, we have Morgan Frost of the Philadelphia Flyers. The problem with the Flyers is that Tortorella really is not consistent with the ice time. He changes it up quite a bit. He changes up the power play units quite a bit, so it's hard to trust some of these Flyers players long term. However, what we're seeing with Frost is solid production, and we're seeing a big ice time bump in the last 5 or 6 games. I don't know if it's going to last, knowing what we know about how Tortorella runs the lines and what he likes to do, but with the way that he's playing right now and with this ice time increase, he could be a solid add in a deeper league. Next, we have Kaapo Kakko. He is line 1 currently, and he's actually seeing very good ice time. I believe he had like 20 minutes last game, so you know, he's not a player that I'm looking to pick up unless I'm in a deeper league, like 12 teams or more, 14 teams or more. Depends on your league settings as well, but I do think he is worth a look depending on your league size. Next, we have Michael Bunting. He is getting a lot of power play time recently. He's been great on the power play. He's in the top 6. Not a guy that's going to put up a lot of peripherals, but as long as he's getting this power play time, he is underrated. Next, we have Shane Pinto. The production hasn't been the best. We've seen an uptick in the last couple of weeks. But what I like about Pinto is that his ice time has been very good. Like some games he's getting like 18, 19, 20 minutes. And maybe if he starts to produce, he could get a look on the top power play unit. Could be worth a look in a deeper league. Next, there's 3 players that could be viable options in a very deep league. We have Morgan Geekie, who has seen an ice time bump because he's been moved up to line 1 with David Pastrnak. We have Ryan McLeod, who is currently centering line 1 with Tage Thompson on his line. We have Noah Cates, who is now centering the top line on the Flyers. He's getting better ice time lately. The production's been solid. So yeah, those 3 guys could be options in a deeper league. Finally, we have one more player I want to talk about here. This is an IR stash. Boone Jenner is set to return shortly after the Four Nations face-off, so that's going to be the end of February or early March. I don't know if he's going to be power play 1 because Voronkhov's been great on the top units, but he's a guy that's going to put up elite shots, hits, and blocks. So if you're in a category league that counts those or a heavy peripheral points league, he could be worth a stash. Next up, let's talk about some defenseman adds. Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens. I talked about his roster percentage being too low last week, and I still think it's too low with the way that he's playing, guys. I mean, he looks incredible out there for a rookie. He is doing incredible stuff, so certainly worth a look, regardless that he doesn't put up peripherals. Then we have Jake Wallman. I still think his roster percentage is too low. It's like 60-something% on Yahoo. This guy's getting elite deployment, very good peripherals. It's a no-brainer. We have Shane Gostisbehere. He is back. He's on power play 1. If he was dropped in a more casual league and you need a defenseman, he could be worth a look. Next, we have Colton Parayko. He's on the 1A power play unit right now, getting very good ice time, putting up very good shots, hits, and blocks. He's definitely worth a look. We also have Jackson Lacombe, who's been on this list for like 10 weeks now. I love his deployment. Obviously, he's on the Ducks, so the upside is limited, but the deployment's good, the peripherals are solid, and the production's been decent as well. We have 2 more players here. Matt Grzelcyk. He's not a guy that's going to put up elite production or put up good peripherals, but he is on the 1A power play with Crosby, and he is producing, so at his current roster percentage, he's definitely a must-add defenseman. And then we also have Jamie Drysdale here. He's getting more power play time as of late. The production's been solid. I'm not buying it because I know, like, I've played these games before. If you've seen that Squid Game meme, listen, guys, the Flyers, they love to switch up the power play units. They love to, you know, give very nice time, but you know, we'll see what happens with Jamie Drysdale. If he continues to get this type of power play time and we see this production continue, he could be a good long-term hold. Lastly, I just want to highlight 3 short-term defenseman adds. The first guy is Michael Kesselring of the Utah Hockey Club. He is power play 1 with Sergachev out. He's going to get a lot of even strength ice time. He puts up solid peripherals. Sergachev is only out day-to-day, so not a long-term hold, but still, he sees a short-term bump. We also have Nate Schmidt, who is still power play 1 with Aaron Ekblad out day-to-day. Could be worth a look. And then we also have Mason Lowry as well, who is power play 1 with McAvoy out day-to-day. All right, lastly, let's talk about some goalie adds. Logan Thompson, I doubt he's available unless you're in a casual league, but yeah, just very impressive stuff with Logan Thompson, and what a season for the Capitals so far. We also have Mackenzie Blackwood. Didn't have the best game last game, but the volume is there on a great team. He's still a long-term hold in my opinion. Darcy Kemper, I still think his roster percentage is too low. The Canes have a great defensive structure. Kemper's played great. Joey Decord, he is seeing more volume finally. Like Grubauer, if you look at the numbers between Decord and Grubauer, it is striking, guys. Decord has been much better this year, and it would just be brain dead for the Kraken not to give Decord a run and give him that volume. Next, we have Cam Talbot. Lyon was playing really good there, but he is still injured, and he's about to miss his 5th straight game. So with this injury, Talbot is getting that volume, and the Red Wings have looked much better with a new coach. Obviously, when Lyon comes back, it's probably a 1A, 1B situation, so not a long-term hold, but Talbot is going to be good until Lyon comes back. And then we have Frederik Andersen. He is back. He's healthy. We will see how long that lasts, but, you know, Kochetkov has not been the best this year, and Andersen is going to be the starting goalie as long as he's healthy. So certainly worth a look. We will see if he gets that volume. Next, we have Sam Harrison of the Philadelphia Flyers. He is streaky, but listen, he's a volume guy. He's going to have good weeks. He's going to have bad weeks, but I still think his roster percentage is pretty low given the volume that he's getting. Then we have a new must-add goalie here. We have Alex Nedeljkovic of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Tristan Jarry sent down to the AHL. Tough season for Jarry. It's over. But that means Nedeljkovic could get the volume that you might want, right? Depends on your league settings, of course. But if you're looking for a goalie with volume, Nedeljkovic could bring that to the table. And yeah, he's a must-add goalie. We will see what happens with the split between Nedeljkovic and Blomqvist. Next, we have Levi Merilainen of the Ottawa Senators. This rookie goalie who has had like 2 shutouts in 4 games. And obviously, this guy's a must-add goalie. His roster percentage has skyrocketed. But I do want to warn you that this is only short-term because Allmark is going to be back in a couple of weeks. And also, we know this is not sustainable, right? Like, we're going to see a game in a couple of games where he gets shelled and it gets dropped. So, yeah, just a warning to you guys. Don't go ahead dropping a goalie that, you know, is a safe goalie that you need to roster for Levi Merilainen, right? Like, that's not going to be a smart decision. Next, we have 2 more goalies. We have Connor Ingram of the Utah Hockey Club. This is really only a deeper league goalie ad. You know, in a deeper league, it's going to be hard to find volume guys. So 1A, 1B guys are still valuable in those type of leagues. And basically, we've seen Vejmelka struggle in the last 2 games. So Ingram could get some more volume, and it could be a split moving forward. Then finally, we have Spencer Knight of the Florida Panthers. It's still Bobrovsky's net, but Knight has played better as of late, and we've seen him get a little more starts than he normally does. So if he continues to outperform Bobrovsky, we could see him get more games, and obviously that volume could be valuable in a deeper league. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Just a PSA here. I recorded this on Saturday morning before all the games, so I'm going to comment below some updates. You know, maybe some injuries happened in Saturday's games, or maybe some guy got better deployment and had a huge game. I'm going to comment below some updates from these games, and if it changes anything that I talked about in this video. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.